Hello everybody, how are you doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel. And today I want to discuss gaming in the year of 2022 because a lot of people have very strong opinions about how the year of gaming is going this year. And most of that conversation seems to be centered around the idea of 2022 being a slow or disappointing year for gaming, which weirdly I can understand, but honestly, I actually don't agree with that. I think 2022 is overall, when you consider from the beginning to what we know will happen by the end of this year, I think overall 2022 is actually a really strong year. And of course, because we mostly focus on and talk about Nintendo here on this channel, a lot of that is aided by the fact that I think Nintendo is having a fantastic year and without question, the strongest console and platform to game on in 2022. So, if I as a big Nintendo fan think Nintendo is having a fantastic year, obviously I'm going to think that the year itself is quality, although it is worth noting there are some other non-Nintendo games and one or two exclusives released on other platforms that are also really great. So I'm just somebody who sees 2022 as a great year for gaming, an incredible year for Nintendo, where I see Nintendo dominating and owning the entire year. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today with you guys. So the way I've seen people talking about things, it seems like most people who feel down about gaming in 2022 are really relying on how they feel about the first half of the year. Because, and I'll even agree with this, the first half of the year is much slower than the back half of the year. Not only for Nintendo, but just for all platforms and all companies. There have been some really great games that have released across the board for sure, as is the same with the first half of any year. But I think that 2022, more so than most years, it feels like there's a stronger difference between the first half and the back half. That the first half of this year is slower than the first half of most years, whereas the back half of this year is kind of, I would call it standard levels of good, because of course the back half is where the holiday shopping season happens. So most companies backload the year with some of their strongest games while still releasing a couple of decent or strong titles in the first half. And I think that's what we've seen happen in 2022 for all companies, Nintendo included. But I'm somebody who's not completely stuck on focusing on the first half of this year and the fact that it was slower, because when I just look at the year as a whole, I see tons of great games and I see the Switch just really having a very strong year. And also, we haven't had the Nintendo Direct scenario play out the way a lot of people wanted as well. So I think it's kind of blinded some Nintendo fans to the true strength of the Switch's library in 2022 as well. Now, here's the thing. Speaking only for myself, okay, I'm not telling everybody to agree with me or feel the same way I do. But speaking for myself, even though I agree the first half is slower than the back half, honestly, there's been some amazing games released in the first half of the year. One of them is really making a case for one of my all-time favorite games. For me, the strongest games in the first half of the year are obviously Elden Ring. Oh my god, maybe one of my top 10 all-time favorite games, and definitely my current frontrunner for Game of the Year. And then also Kirby and the Forgotten Lands, one of the very strong Switch titles for the year. So those two games alone made me completely satisfied with the first half of the year. I also very much enjoyed the LEGO Star Wars Skywalker Saga game. I played almost all the way through it. I stopped halfway through The Last Jedi, but I played through the original 6 movies and I played through The Force Awakens, and it's a really great, fun game. It's not like mind-blowing, but it's just a great time, and it was worth the 40 or 50 bucks or whatever I paid for it. So that's another third game that released in the beginning of the year that I also did have a lot of fun with. So right there, Elden Ring and Kirby just doing a fantastic job. And I've touched on this in the past. Even though I'm a huge Nintendo fan, Kirby has never really been my favorite character or favorite franchise, but Kirby and the Forgotten Land, absolutely excellent. Just an excellent, fun game. I had such a blast. It looks beautiful. I love the worlds. I love all the levels. The gameplay is so creative and fun. It's just a great game and definitely one of my favorite games of the year and one of my favorite games on the Switch. But really, again, Elden Ring takes the cake for me, and when I think of the first half of the year so far, it's the only game that truly jumps out to me outside of Kirby. And of course, we can't forget that Sony also had Gran Turismo 7 and Horizon Forbidden West, two very huge, very popular and successful PlayStation exclusives. So that's another couple of games that really kind of sells the first half of the year as being better than a lot of people remember it. And then there were some other smaller offshoot games across the board. And the Switch had, I think, 2 or 3 other really notable games in the first half as well. One being Switch Sports, the other being Mario Strikers. I hope I'm not forgetting something. Oh, I know what it is, and it's Pokemon Arceus, which is a game that was not on my radar because I'm not a Pokemon fan. But that was a big deal, very popular, people love it. My wife loved it, so hello. I mean, my wife was even playing that game. But that, of course, came out in January. So again, we're kind of adding more to the Switch pot, right? Yes, there was Elden Ring and Horizon and Gran Turismo for non-Switch games, but there was also Pokemon Legends Arceus, there was Kirby, which was just fantastic. Switch Sports, I know was disappointing, but was a big deal with a lot of hype, and a lot of people have purchased it. Mario Strikers, same thing. I know it's disappointing for a lot of folks, but it was a hotly anticipated game, and I thought it looked cool and even considered kind of picking it up. Of course, Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes is another one that my wife has already put like 100 hours into. I haven't even gotten to freaking play the game yet. So that's another Switch exclusive for the first half of the year. It's crazy. And so, you put all of those games together. We're going to add Lego Star Wars in as well. I mean, you've got a ton of games across the board. There's probably some other smaller indie games I didn't even think to bring up as well. Most of these are Switch exclusive games and Nintendo games, by the way, and that's just the first half of the year. So I guess I get it, how it kind of feels like a slower first half of the year. Ghostwire Tokyo is another one jumping to mind as well that came out. But that's about 10 games I think I just named. In the ballpark of 10 games, more than half are Switch exclusive games that released in the first half of 2022. In my opinion, that's not a bad way to start a year. And now when we move into the back half of the year, which we're in currently because we're, about 2 weeks into August at this point, and this is where Nintendo is going to really take over. And a lot of the naysayers who feel like Nintendo is disappointing them this year simply because they're blinded by the fact that we didn't get a Nintendo Direct over the summer, this is where a lot of those people need to maybe relax and take a step back and look at the entire picture, because Nintendo is coming out full force in the back half of the year, okay? And obviously, in the month of July, we had 2 big heavy hitters, Live Alive, and then the big one, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which I am currently playing and absolutely loving. It is not my favorite Xenoblade game. I know a lot of people are kind of riding the high of it being the current exciting game, and I get that. And for a lot of people, it probably is their favorite Xenoblade so far. For me, it's not my favorite, but it is awesome, and I am loving it. I am 35 hours in, which is crazy for me given my schedule and the fact that I'm not even an RPG fan, but I love the Xenoblade games, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is fantastic. So those are 2 big Switch exclusives in July alone. I do want to touch on 2 non-Switch exclusive games real quick that are coming out in the back half of the year. Actually 3 big non-Switch exclusive games. One is the Callisto Protocol, which looks fantastic, like a Dead Space game. It just looks amazing. I'm hoping it sticks to this year. Can't wait for that. There is, of course, Sonic Frontiers, which is coming out on the Switch, but is also multi-platform. I talked about this recently. I think I was the only one. The day the first video went out on IGN about this game and everyone crapped on it, I was like, you guys, this game looks awesome to me. And then everyone came around with the second trailer they released, and now people are excited for it, which I'm glad to see. But I kind of want to just call everyone out for being so down on that game, and I thought it looked amazing from the get-go. Maybe it turns out to be bad when it releases. Sure, Sonic doesn't have a great track record, and we all know that. But I personally think it looks great. I thought it looked great from the first footage we ever saw. Very excited for that game. And then the big one, which to me probably has the best chance of being my personal game of the year this year. It is not a Switch game. It's God of War Ragnarok. It's going to blow our minds. It's going to blow my balls off. I freaking loved the 2018 game. I love the whole franchise. This game is going to rule. So that is another massive non-Switch game coming out. So even non-Switch exclusives, there's 3 major titles that jump to mind for me right away. That's great. Then we go back to Switch stuff. We already had Live Alive and Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but we've got a couple other big Switch exclusive games to be excited for. The first of which is Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope. And I really enjoyed the first game. I'm not massively excited for this game, but I am certainly into checking it out. And that comes out on October 20th, so that's another October game we can look forward to. Of course, I actually skipped over Splatoon 3, which comes out in September, and we just had a great Splatoon Direct about that game. That game is going to be amazing. They're doing so many cool new things to it. I'm so stoked for another single-player adventure, and I very much enjoy the multiplayer stuff. Just give me the standard team deathmatch multiplayer modes and give me a great single-player mode, and I'm happy. I'm satisfied with just that when it comes to Splatoon. It's going to look better. It's going to play better. There's new weapons. They've improved the online infrastructure and the hub that you kind of navigate through. It's going to be amazing. And so that's another huge Switch exclusive games on top of Mario plus Rabbids. Then we get to the other game, Switch exclusive, that will be a contender for my game of the year that I am so excited for, Bayonetta 3. In my opinion, not even close, the biggest and best and most excited Switch exclusive game for me in 2022. I think Bayonetta 3, you guys, is going to be so unbelievably good and might even be better than God of War and Elden Ring for me. It's really a battle between those three, in my mind, for my personal game of the year, is Elden Ring and God of War and Bayonetta 3. Those are the big ones for me. Bayonetta 3 comes out October 28th, and it's just going to floor me. I cannot wait. And then, of course, Nintendo is going to wrap up the year with the other new Pokemon games that are going to be hugely popular, very successful. They're going to sell like crazy and break records. And, you know, I know I sound like a broken record on this topic, but every time I bring up Pokemon as a non-fan, I always have to mention this. Every new Pokemon release has a ton of controversy, and the Pokemon fan base just goes nuts, and they lose their mind, and they're fighting about it. Some people love it, some people hate it, everyone criticizes it, but at the end of the day, everyone also just buys it. Every divisive, controversial, hated Pokemon game that I've seen release has always ended up selling like crazy. So for all the complaining, everyone's going to buy it. And so I have no opinion on the quality because I don't play Pokemon, but it's going to be a massive game. It's probably going to be the best-selling Switch game and one of the best-selling games of the entire year. So for Pokemon fans, I'm excited for you guys. You have another great Pokemon game, or two games, I should say, to play this year in November. So again, when we look at the Switch's back half of the year, on top of their really strong first half, we're adding Live Alive, we're adding Xenoblade Chronicles 3, we're adding Splatoon 3, we're adding Mario plus Rabbids, we're adding Bayonetta 3, we're adding 2 new Pokemon games. And God forgive me, like, if I'm missing a game, you know? There's probably something I'm not even thinking about. But yeah, like, that's an amazing Switch lineup, right? And then we have those other non-Switch exclusive games, God of War, Callisto Protocol, and Sonic Frontiers. And again, probably some other ones that, heaven forbid, I'm forgetting about. Like, there's really a ton of games. So when we package this all together, we look at 2022 as a whole, and I'm talking about Kirby, I'm talking about Elden Ring, I'm talking about Mario Strikers, I'm talking about Horizon Forbidden West, we're talking about Switch Sports and Xenoblade and Splatoon and Bayonetta and Pokemon and God of War. Holy cow, it's a great year across the board. Xbox did suffer because their biggest games, which was Redfall and Starfield, sadly got delayed. So they've got nothing for games that are exclusive this year. A couple of decent multi-platform games like Sonic and Elden Ring, you know, like that came out on that platform. And like, I love the Xbox, so that's cool. But clearly they missed out on the big games and the exclusive games. But in general, the entire industry, man, I mean, all these games I just listed, great. I mean, people have been complaining about 2022, and I just don't really see what they're saying. It's a great year. And then again, let's refocus on Nintendo. Obviously, all of us who are Nintendo fans, seeing all these games, but I've also watched so many people complain about Nintendo and feel like it's a disappointing Switch year. Just because, again, yeah, it sucks we didn't get a Nintendo Direct over the summer. I agree. I know there was the partner showcase, and weirdly, everyone loved that, and I didn't. Yet still people are complaining about the lack of regular Direct. So in my mind, I'm like, no one is calibrated because you guys are pissed about the lack of regular Direct, but you're also the same folks that loved the partner showcase. And I'm the opposite, where I don't care that we didn't get a Direct, and I didn't like the partner showcase. So why is everyone on opposite ends? I don't understand what folks are really complaining about. Which then gets exacerbated when we see the amazing Switch games this year. I mean, I just named, there's like, what, 10 Switch exclusive huge games. So I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting topic because everyone said 2022 is a boring year, the Switch is disappointing, the industry is slowing down, and I just don't see it. How many games did I talk about in this video? How many other games are you guys going to list in the comments that I didn't even mention? Probably another 10 or 15 games, right? So, I don't know, you guys tell me, am I missing something when I say that 2022 has been a very great, strong, satisfying year for me? Am I missing something when I say between all platforms, you know, for me, PlayStation and Switch, having all of these games to play, seeing Nintendo have the strongest year across the board, am I wrong or missing something when I say it's satisfying? Or when I say that Nintendo has a great 2022? I don't understand what I'm missing that other people are complaining about. So I feel good about my opinion, but I am curious to hear your guys' perspective. So I want you to tell me below what you think. Am I right or wrong? Do you agree or disagree? And just talk about 2022. Talk about Nintendo's year and let me know what you think about it all. So with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video. Bye-bye.